a real-life astronaut.
If I had my way, we would be in the Jetsons world today.
I'm ready for my flying car.
I'm ready too. I grew up in Jupiter, Florida, which is very on brand. You have your own personal mission control over something like your finances.
We need to let more women billionaires into space and put a heart monitor on them. Astronomical.
Astronomical.
Out of this world, some would say. Who, would you say wears the spacesuit at home?
My daughter would think it was crazy to imagine like daddy going to space. I refuse to correct that.
Welcome, Kellie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Definitely welcome. For anyone who doesn't know, one of the first 100 women to go to space, bioastronautics research, if I said that correctly.
Exactly, you nailed it.
It's like smarter than I can even say. Payload specialist and also acclaimed children's author with Luna Moona.
Thank you.
Before we get into this amazing conversation, we need to cover some basics. So I want to tell you that I'm a registered representative of SoFi Securities, LLC, and an investment advisor representative with SoFi Wealth, LLC. In every episode of Rich Your Lives, it's my job to make sure that nothing said gives the wrong impression about investing or personal finance.
And I need to tell everyone that myself and Kellie Gerardi are non-client promoters of SoFi Wealth, LLC, and we've both been compensated by SoFi for our time. Before we start the show, we like to keep things very light, do a little icebreaker, a little bit of fun.
Okay, I'm ready.
I know you already know this, but so many everyday things that we all love and use were actually originally invented for space travel.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know how there's the meme where it's like, okay, you have $10, and then there's different items where like you have to allocate those $10. So let's say we're going on a trip to the moon.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Yeah, I know. It sounds awesome. I'm a little terrified. But like, how are you going to divvy up that $10? That's the game we're going to play.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. This is our board that we can select from.
Okay.
But you only have $10.
Ooh, there's some good stuff on here.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Ooh.
Fruit. It's so hard. You're thinking about it like a harsh
budget
environment like this.
Yeah.
To me, the things that come to mind, like, of course, comfort, I'm looking at the memory foam, but entertainment in such a desolate environment, I think that becomes absolutely critical to your sanity, your quality of life. So if I have $10 to allocate, I'm bringing a laptop for sure. I am gonna bring a camera phone, like the content creator in me who is going to the moon. And then, let's see, I have $3 left. Okay, I'm gonna bring solar cells to keep all of those charged.
Okay, that's fair.
Kellie said, I don't want to be comfortable at all, but I better be entertained.
I'm gonna trust that my habitat will cover the UV blocking. I'm gonna trust that there is some food available. I don't need a mouse, and I think I'm gonna.
I don't think I've used a computer mouse in years.
What?
I'll be honest, I almost, when I was just glancing at the board, didn't recognize. I'm like, what's that one? Oh, a mouse.
I'm the only one that uses a mouse?
Yeah.
Oh, I need 3 monitors and a mouse all day. Like that's how my work setup is at home. You just use the little.
Yeah, same. Yeah, okay, I'm locking it in. Laptop, camera phone, and solar cells.
So it's like an investment. When you get back, you're gonna have amazing content.
Yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
I'm good.
Exactly. I'll be able to share it. I'll be able to stream it.
Yes. Okay, so if I had to choose, I have a quick question. The solar cells are for charging, right?
Yeah, powering generally.
Okay. In that case, the phone, the wireless headphones, because I truly don't want to be alone with my thoughts at any point. I want to be able to hear music at all times. So I'm at $6. I would probably get the blanket and also the solar cells. I don't think I need the laptop because pretty much anything that I can do on a laptop, I can do on my phone these days.
That feels really reasonable to me.
Yeah, but I'm always cold too, and I feel like space is not the warmest place. I would love a little extra. Something.
I'll be jealous of that. I'll be sitting shivering on my iPhone.
I mean, if we're together, you can come under my blanket if we can watch Netflix on your laptop.
Listen, I think on these first initial settlements that those type of partnerships are going to be really important because, you barter and you trade and you figure, okay, this person's got this book or movie that I don't have. This person has freeze-dried fruit. Yeah. What are you bringing?
I think I'm going to do the memory foam. because I'm a baby when I don't get enough sleep. Like, I need good sleep. I'll do the camera phone.
Okay.
I'll do the blanket. And then I think I have two things. Can I trade freeze-dried fruit for like bacon or sausage or something? Or do I have to stick with
I don't think
fruit?
that'll be in the $1 category.
Yeah, I feel like, well, but you know what? He has $2 left, so I feel like you could put like bacon into a $2 category.
Yeah, like, because
So like
I mean, if I
freeze-dried
had to eat
bacon.
fruit, I would, but like I don't want to. But yeah, if that's the only option.
Beef jerky.
Yeah, like beef jerky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you can eat that in space, right?
Yeah,
Wait,
why not?
I have a question. Where would space ice cream fall on this?
I'm not an ice cream fan. Now, space Chipotle burrito would be $10.
Right,
Like,
without
that's
a doubt.
it.
That's
Down.
11. You can't even afford that.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Like a good pizza in space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a pretty solid roster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
I wonder who would pick a vacuum or a GPS? Like
I'm not cleaning.
You're looking at Earth. Like, how do you not know how to get back?
Yeah.
Like,
And I'm sorry that I didn't bring headphones because everyone is going to be forced to listen to me.
Oh yeah, you're gonna be the
on
person
all of my
watching out loud.
electronics,
Yeah.
but you're alone, just like in the movie The
Yeah.
Martian. Yeah.
Yeah.
It evens out.
So, like, hopping into it, what inspired you to go down this path initially?
Yeah. I grew up in Jupiter, Florida, which is very on brand for someone with my particular passions. And I think seeing space shuttle launches as a child, I felt like I had front row seats to the final frontier. It was super inspiring. And then when I got older, I discovered the commercial spaceflight industry. And that, captivated me. I was like, oh, this is the industry that is going to help democratize access to space. It's going to help us usher in a new age of space travel for humanity. And I set out in my career to work on every single aspect of that. I mean, I had roles starting out in space policy, in regulatory reform, in hardware, reusable rocket technology, then operations, national security, and defense, and then finally microgravity research with my research institute. And we, have spent the last decade using parabolic flights. So imagine the aircraft that takes this roller coaster profile to give you brief bursts of microgravity, and that's where we test our technology and do our research. But the goal has always been to send our researchers to space to get that longer duration exposure to microgravity. And that is what finally happened this past November. I flew as a payload specialist.
Oh my gosh. Can I ask a stupid question? By microgravity, do you mean those planes that go up and then people start to float?
Vomit comet, yep.
Yeah, nice.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. During that free fall portion where you are weightless and you're able to, if you're conducting research during that time, it gives you, a very specific condition for your research. But it's short, right? You only have so far until the plane hits the ground. Then you have to pull up. And so, you have to be in space if you really want to get that long duration. And so that's what we were able to do.
I feel like so many people don't think about all of that and they only see your highlight moment, right?
Yeah.
Like the moment of you with the photo of being in space or being like, hey, today's the day we're launching, but they don't see all the months and months of planning and, years of hard work that have actually gone into getting you to that point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why I try to make such an effort to show, more glimpses into my life on social media as well, because I felt very well prepared for my spaceflight from, what I was responsible for doing, the research I was responsible for conducting. But I was, left to my own devices on figuring out how to navigate some of the stuff with my family, how to answer my daughter's questions in a way that was both honest and reassuring, and just, all of the little minutia around it of being a very modern family, I guess.
I am so curious, you've obviously had so many of these ambitions and achieved so many of them. Were there any financial considerations along the way of like, oh, I'm going to need to get this degree and that's going to have this much debt and this much impact on my finances going forward until all the way to going to space?
Yeah, in terms of unexpected costs around spaceflight, I would say for me, once I knew that I had the opportunity to fly to space, my husband and I had a lot of serious conversations about it. And I think it's important to know that this is new terrain for the whole industry. We're talking in the entire history of humanity, a few hundred people have gone to space. But for the commercial space industry, it's even smaller than that.
Yeah.
So it operates under this regime of informed consent, which is basically like the government wants to make sure you know you are not stepping on to a commercial aircraft. You cannot expect that, reasonable expectation of the same safety.
Yeah.
They want to make sure you're able to give knowledgeable, informed consent to the explicit risks that you're taking. And I felt very confident with my risk calculus, but as a parent, I'm not cavalier either. And so I'd say after all was said and done with our wills and estate planning, we probably spent about $2,000 like papering all of that.
Yeah.
We didn't even have a lot of assets. It was more power of attorney, medical decision-making, and most importantly, guardianship for my daughter. And I'm actually glad we had that forcing function because I feel like that's something we should have as parents.
Yes,
and so it was money well spent. And then I would say the one other unexpected, or maybe shouldn't be surprising, but I was looking into life insurance, right?
Yeah.
Now's the time. And it is not covered under, most life insurance policies. And so I was looking at term coverage and it's like, okay, let me try. So many, not to name names, were like unwilling to consider coverage. And I was like, fair, super fair. But when I was looking at some that were thinking about like, okay, maybe we could discuss it, the premiums were like,
astronomical. Out of this world, some would say.
Oh my
They were not.
gosh.
I can't believe I missed that one.
Yeah.
but yeah, they really were. I think now there are some boutique agencies that are targeting, maybe for tourists or adventurers. It was a little out of reach for me, but we just, doubled up on my husband's life insurance instead. I'm like, you got this. Financial literacy for me, it was not something that was ever prioritized. Like, I feel like I have a lot to learn. I have very explicit savings goals in my mind, in my life. Like I want to save for my daughter's education. I want to look into IVF. I want to pay off my car. If I do have another child, that's another, educational expense. And I don't feel like I have a great grasp personally on how to prioritize saving for all of those different things. So I think those conversations are so important, and being able to have really accessible shows and platforms like this where people can engage with these topics that were previously, I don't know, either behind closed doors or just less accessible. And I think it's so important, and it's been inspiring to me personally. I'm like, okay, I actually do need financial advice. Like I need a strategy around this. It's not just gonna magically happen overnight that I'm gonna have the right priorities in order. So I think it's super important to continue putting these conversations out there. Until we had, I don't know what it was, just the trip to the notary was like too cumbersome. Like I don't know what the blocker was for us, but in our head, and we were on the same page about everything. It was just a matter of doing it.
To Kellie's point, Brian, what do you think some of the blockers for people are when it comes to like actually getting their money into a good place? Like why are people so reticent to do it?
Yeah, I think there's almost like too much time or too much uncertainty. Like I'll use the will example.
Right.
Like you don't generally think it's going to happen. Like why would I do something if I don't think I'm going to need it? Or college seems so far away. So I think it's just having just small bite-sized goals where you're like, okay, here's one thing I need to do at a time. And it just becomes much easier because it kind of grows over time. But I think that's the biggest challenge. And plus, especially parents, like everything is busy. Like it's like, okay, like all parents, like you wake up, you work, you have kids, you go to bed and you're like, can I please watch one show before I fall asleep? Like, so
Can
it
I
just
relax
takes time.
for 5 minutes?
It's so true. Sounds so stupid, but I truly think that was the blocker to getting to the notary. It's like me and my husband having to go and get to this like one errand where we both have to do the errands together. Like it was just an annoying task with two very busy schedules, and we put it off for too long.
And definitely a little paralysis by analysis, I'm sure, when you're thinking about like, oh, well, what kind of life insurance do I need to get? Or like if I'm saving, like which savings account do I want? Like which high yield savings account do I want? And it just can feel very overwhelming, and the status quo is comfortable, It's not the
Yes.
best option, but it is comfortable.
You're so right. And those are things that, in this next chapter of my life, I'm really trying to educate myself on. I'm looking forward to benefiting from your advice. And that is something, what should I be proactively saving for? How do you prioritize when you have near-term goals, like you want to pay off a car, and you have long-term goals, like you want to pay for an education, and then you have like surprise goals, like maybe needing IVF, it's just all of these different things that have such wildly large price tags attached to them.
Yeah, and I think like for me, when you're talking about the space industry and how it's kind of like transforming, I'm grateful. I think the finance industry is doing the same thing because like before you think like, okay, brick and mortar, like, oh, I got to go somewhere. Like it's just one more excuse not to do it. Whereas now, like with SoFi, like everything's in the palm of your hand. So it's like, okay, you get a notification, cool, and you could do it right from your phone. I think removing those physical barriers just makes it much more likely people will do it.
Yes, and having all of your information at your fingertips and being able to feel like you have your own personal mission control over something like your finances.
Mission control.
It's so meaningful. It makes all the difference. So it's helpful.
Marketing's going to steal that. I hope you're not
Yeah,
expecting
without a doubt.
royalties.
I love it. I love it. I'll use it. I'll be a customer.
I mean, the good news, I think, like saving for college.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the things where it seems super just challenging. There are so many great 529 plans across the country. Like, especially with that goal, I will say time is either your best friend or your worst enemy.
Yeah.
Because like you start early, you get compounding, you're good to go. It's your best friend.
Yep.
But like you wait till like middle school, high school, it's like, oh, I have to save so much money that's like your worst enemy. And you're like, it's almost like insurmountable.
That the 529 is my like personal pat on the back moment for myself because I was like, I wasn't even familiar with it. It's just, they need to give you a handbook when you get pregnant that is like less about just all of your body changes and more about all of your lifestyle, administrative changes that need to be made. But a 529 was something that, we put in place very early, and it is a soothing meditative exercise for me to go in every so often and be like, yep, still growing. So it's helpful.
Parents and guardians, this is your sign that you really need to get those things done that you've been putting off. And if you need some help along the way, please feel free to check the link below.
You know what I think is a major red flag, Brian?
What's that?
A bank that doesn't support your ambitions.
That is the worst. But SoFi members don't really know how that feels because SoFi always has their back.
That's right. SoFi can help you reach all your ambitions all in one app with benefits like complimentary access to financial planners and highly competitive APY on savings balances. You might be closer to achieving your goals than you think. Sign up to become a member today at SoFi.com/richerlives.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting too, you also bring, I guess, the broad exposure or experience you have. Like, maybe it's just me, like when you always think about, going to space, you think of like fighter pilots or whatever it may be. But like, can you describe the different skill sets that really kind of make this possible and will take it forward?
Yeah, there's so many different paths. I would say, in the last decade, we've seen access to space increase so much. And I think, myself being one of the first 100 women to fly to space, I think it's just proof that the limiter has always been access and not aptitude. And so, with all of these different markets, whether it's your traditional sort of NASA astronauts or with the commercial industry researchers like myself coming from academic institutions or employees of these companies that are flying on their, company spacecraft, another day at work, or whether it's tourists who are, able to afford tickets to, participate in this. So I think it's really amazing to see all of the different paths that have converged to, being part of this ecosystem.
Yeah. And I honestly, like as a girl dad, I love it because it also forces STEM education. I think that's also a great thing where it's like, even like just playing around with my daughter, like being able to have those conversations, it kind of opens that up, which I think is so powerful.
It was top of mind for me when I flew, just thinking about the fact that historically we've seen so few women in these roles visibly. And it's funny, when you think about like, who do you picture, close your eyes and think of an astronaut? It's like, you're not gonna picture someone like me. I'm not gonna picture someone like me, but my daughter does.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of like needle movement in my own house. Like, so you tell her, draw a picture of an astronaut. She's drawing a girl. Half the time she's drawing herself. And, she is just growing up thinking like, that's just what moms do. That's what girls do. And so I think that gives me a lot of hope. Yeah. But it was something I was very intentional about. I was like, even participating in a show like this where I'm talking about something that's a very serious topic to me, but I'm not toning down any aspect of myself or, my interests or my femininity, because instead of trying to fit the picture historically of what we have, I want the picture to expand to include me and to include, others who will come. And so that's been a very sort of important piece that's always been top of mind for me in the last year.
Awesome.
I love that so much. I started my career on Wall Street and I felt like I wanted to be one of the boys so badly, and I could never wear color. And I love that you're here wearing pink pants, talking about the fact that, hey, I'm a woman who has been in space, and I'm sure you've heard this song, but it's the 100 tampon song.
I love it.
Yeah. So
joke was on me though, because I made like a silly TikTok. I'm like, wouldn't it be funny? I packed 100 tampons for my same day flight and then got my period the day before my flight over a week early.
No.
So then it suddenly became a conversation I had to have with my medical team about, hey, we haven't had a lot of data points about women's healthcare in space, and we've certainly have very few anecdotes about it. It made me more excited to contribute to research and biomedical research specifically around how space affects the female body, because
I am the research.
we have so few data points on previously a very homogenous medical profile of women who have flown. And so, in this new era, I think it's cool to be able to add to that. But I have to say, I also look up to you so much, because similarly, leading a conversation on a topic like finance and being such a thought leader in your industry, I love that also as parent of a daughter, to see leadership, with that visible representation and uncompromising representation, to being comfortable being yourself and still being a boss in your space. I love that.
Thank you. Sorry, now my eyes are watering because it's just dry in here. I don't know why my eyes are watering. I would love to know, aside from not needing 100 tampons for 6 days, are there any other myths about going to space?
In terms of myths, one myth that I can confirm is true is that going to space and seeing your home planet from space does change you. And Frank White had coined this phenomenon as the overview effect. And it's this cognitive shift in perspective of seeing your home planet from space. And for me, it was like, I thought I knew exactly what to expect. It was like we've all grown up seeing pictures of the Earth from space and from way further away than I was. But the difference for me was experiencing Earth as a planet, and that cognitive dissonance of being both a part of it and slightly outside of it. It was a really emotional, profound moment, and just the fragility of it all. And that's something I think I'll carry with me forever. And I still don't quite have the words to do it justice. I don't know if I ever will, but that was something where it's just like, God, I want more people to experience this, not just to see it, but to experience it in this moment, in this way. It was just really profound. So that's one myth that is absolutely true. It is transformative.
And I think one of the other things that I guess has been changing too is, like you mentioned earlier, the commercialization of space travel. I guess what are the opportunities versus the challenges of commercialization versus, let's say, going through the government?
Space exploration generally, I think, is like an all boats rise with the tide sort of thing for humanity. And I think the last decade has proven that with public-private partnerships, we go further and faster and cheaper together. And I think government has this deep institutional knowledge over decades of lessons learned, and then private industry is able to benefit from that, but add agility and operational tempo and innovation, and that brings the cost down. It creates, freed up resources for government to do what they are uniquely best at, which is setting the vision for our nation and, the scientific exploration that doesn't have a business case, or an ROI attached to it yet. Whereas industry is able to help create that market. And for me, space tourism is a topic that, certainly gets a lot of strong opinions on multiple sides. I'm personally very grateful for the existence of that market and that industry, because I don't think I or other researchers like myself would have had the opportunity to, leverage these platforms to turn them into laboratories, to conduct our research in space and to use space as a laboratory to benefit humanity if that demand didn't exist and, if that market wasn't there. So I think exploration has always needed both patrons and pioneers in history. So,
do you think folks that do that and are part of this first wave have an obligation to then help fund further research?
What I would really like to see with these tourism flights going forward is, I would like to outfit them with biomedicals, biomonitoring devices. I would like for them to participate in research. And, there's just so much opportunity on every single one of these flights. If I could load up all of the extra space in that spacecraft, even with autonomous payloads and experiments, or I imagine they might be interested in participating. Like, we can train them up. And so I just think there's a massive opportunity to better integrate science opportunistically with these flights, and I'd love to see that happen.
What I just took away from that answer was we need to let more women billionaires into space and put a heart monitor on them.
Listen, you can have my spot. I would be terrified.
Brian would be sweating, crying.
My husband also loves gravity, loves Earth, big fan.
Oh my gosh.
We've talked a little bit now about the future. I'd love to rewind the tape back just a little bit. You've had this non-linear but incredibly cool career path. Did it ever worry you when you looked around the room and there weren't any faces that looked like yours, and you kind of had to be the trailblazer of women in space?
Yeah, I mean, so many insecurities, early in my career. Being conscious of, if I showed up in an outfit like this 10 years ago, I don't think that I would be taken seriously. I think I had to do what I did to be able to, be in a seat and earn the right to wear pink pants if I want to. And, I do think about that a lot because I made that commitment to myself of like, okay, I'm not going to tone down anything to bring my full self to space. But that was a factor. And then I also think motherhood for me was like a big, I had a lot of anxiety about, am I going to be able to prioritize both a career and motherhood at the same time? Like, I don't know, how will this work? And I think for women who are trying to do both and want to do both, there is no mythical, right time to start your family. And there are trade-offs on all sides. But that was something that, again, I like to show little glimpses into my life, because for any women who are looking at their careers and being like, can I do it? It's like, yes, you can. There will be hard days, but you can do this. And similarly for women who are mothers now and are feeling guilt or, hearing criticism about those days where the scales might not perfectly balance on any particular day or week, it's like, you have to give yourself grace. You have to tune all of that out. Like, if you wouldn't take advice from them, don't take criticism from them. It's like, what's best for your family. And that's something that I've had to put into practice to really tune out.
And it was that part of the inspiration behind, let's say, the content about, encouraging STEM or even the children's books.
Luna Moona.
Yeah, I definitely. Luna Moona started out just as a bedtime story for my daughter, because when I was trying to fill her nursery with space-themed everything, which I swear I don't ask her to be interested in space. I have no expectations of her growing up, and I don't force it on her. It's a part of our lives. But I didn't find a lot of books that centered female protagonists, girls on the cover, and I just figured that was a gap. And so I created this character and was able to turn it into a book series years later, which is so fulfilling. But, on that cover, she's wearing a sparkly, glittery space helmet. And I just wanted to make the point early on, my daughter gravitates towards...
Did I grab it?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And we even got the publisher to splurge on real glitter on the cover. It's a must.
I love.
Non-negotiable. But, I wanted to make the point that glitter and sparkle and space and STEM all go together. They are not, mutually exclusive themes. Like, for a little girl who gravitates towards Fancy Nancy and Angelina Ballerina, I'm so pumped.
Which are great shows, by the way.
They're so great, and I love them, but I'm so happy that my book is not in the science section. It's right next to Fancy Nancy. It's like, it's accessible. It's meeting a little girl where they're at and showing them early on that, your interests are all valid. They are naturally interested and curious about space, as most little kids are. And so finding a way to meet them where they're at that combines their interest in a way that feels more accessible to them was something that I just felt very strongly about, and have been so amazed and humbled by the response to it. It's been really cool.
That's awesome. And when you decided that you were like, hey, I want to expand my family, I want to become a mom, was it ever a worry for you? Like, hey, if I take the 9 months, and it sets my career back, and then I have to take maternity leave, and I, want to raise my kid and be a part of their lives. What was your consideration when it was balancing career and the actual joy and happiness of your family.
Yeah. So, Delta, my pregnancy with Delta, I knew I wanted to be a mom.
Yeah.
I knew like roughly in the time frame we were ready to start a family, but the exact timing of my pregnancy with her was not planned. And so I remember feeling those contradicting emotions of like, I am so excited and I'm also gonna cry because I can't participate anymore in these microgravity missions that I was just getting. So I felt like I was just hitting my stride and I was effectively grounded, and then I remember postpartum immediately after I was wearing Spanx under my flight suit just to like keep my organs in place and thinking like, and I'm like pumping, I'm lactating. You just feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do all of this.
Yeah.
And, you get through it. There was this journalist who phrased it so perfectly. It always stuck with me. She called it the Schrodinger's cat of parenthood. She's like, you're trying to parent like you don't have a job and you're trying to work like you don't have a family. I was like, you nailed it. And so there was a lot of that. But again, like giving myself permission to like pursue my passions. My dreams got bolder when I became a mom. They didn't dim. And I think that was what was so shocking to me in being like an online person now too, is receiving comments from people and from other women and mothers who, would see me prioritize my career and do this thing and try to reach my full potential and be like, that's so selfish. I can't believe you would do that as a mother. Why did you even bother having kids? And just that mindset that somehow your identity and your potential and your dreams get capped at pregnancy, like it's unfathomable to me.
Yeah.
And it's not the future I want for my daughter. I want to be the example of you get one precious life on this earth. You get 70 years if you are lucky and blessed, right? To not make the most of it, like that is not what I want for my kid. It's like you can't have it both ways. You have, you want visible representation of women in STEM. You want astronaut Barbies and you want astronaut American Girl dolls and role models, for little girls until those little girls grow up and become mothers with children of their own. And then it's like, how dare you pursue those dreams that we insisted were so important now that you are a mother now. Yeah. And so it's just, that is something that I still think we have a long way to go. But overall, I feel super optimistic because I think about how far we've come. Like I think about my mom, she was at my space flight as well. When she was growing up, women were not eligible to become astronauts in the US. And one single generation later, she watched her daughter fly to space and she's watching her granddaughter take it for granted. And that is just, to me, it's like, okay, we are moving in the right direction here. And that is a lot of change in one generation. It makes me, really excited.
When you were choosing a partner, choosing your husband, was that a consideration that you were like, I have to make sure I find someone who isn't worried about how brightly I shine and that can't dim him?
Yes, and I'm so, I love the language that you even chose for that question because it is a choice. It's an intentional decision. And I often say that for women who want to prioritize both career goals and a family, the most important consequential decision you will ever make is your choice of partner. And that true partnership, someone who sees your potential, believes in you, and wants you to reach it as badly as you want to reach it, it's everything. And, I will say it's been, a journey, the last few years of our, peaks and valleys of different, I shouldn't say peaks and valleys, it's more like different seasons of life. And I think the last few years have been very Kelly-centric in our family. And it's like, okay,
the Kelly show.
Mommy's going to space, right? And now that big dream is behind me, and I had a partner who was really standing with me the entire time, cheering me on. I'm now in a phase where it's like, I know that my husband has dreams that he wants to achieve. He has career milestones that he wants to run for. And I am now wanting to create the support system at home to be able to, let him run and shine. And so I really do think it's a partnership, and that's what makes it work. So absolutely, I think that was the most important choice that I made.
Your partner actually works in a similar field, in space. Who, would you say wears the spacesuit at home? And how do you guys balance that? Like you mentioned, you had the Kelly show for a little bit, but now it's his turn to kind of reach those career milestones for himself. How do you work that balance out?
Yeah, it's funny because even though he works in aerospace and it's a very cool field, my daughter would think it was crazy to imagine like daddy going to space. Like, and I refuse to correct that. I'm like, wouldn't it be
that
wild?
is crazy. Can't believe that.
To her, it's just like, that's what mommies do. Mm-hmm. And so it's really funny, and I'm gonna ride that as long as I can. But on the partnership side, it's just so important, and it's a generational difference as well that I think is really cool to see. And I look at some of the things, like my husband just went in the other day, he was the mystery reader in my daughter's kindergarten class. And I've seen a lot more dads be in the classroom on times where I've volunteered, and we split those duties down the middle. It's just like practicality. Like I can't be in town this week because I'm here, and he can, and vice versa. And so I have noticed a lot, though, in our community, even and in our school system, that I am seeing a lot more participation. I don't know, have you found the same thing with your family? Yeah, I mean, you're involved in the flag football, it sounds like. And
we're in school all the time.
Yeah.
It is great because it is such a big mix. And I think that's powerful for both the boys and the girls in the class because they only grow into what they see. And I take it as a lesson for definitely my daughter, but especially my son, too.
Yeah, I agree so much with that. I mean, I think it's a really powerful piece of representation to have the expectation when you're growing up that, this is not just a mom job, to be a part of my life in this way. It is a family. And I think that really was driven home when I had my daughter, and I had a maternity leave that I was grateful for, but my husband did not have a single day of parental leave. And I was just like, he was taking a sick day to be in the hospital with me. And I was like, this is, I was about to say a word that would need to be bleeped, but it is messed up, you know? And I just think that's another thing that reinforces that this is the domain solely of women, when in fact we should be reinforcing that, bonding and care with a newborn child is equally important for fathers to be involved into, for all parents to
But also,
participate.
what a horrible experience, not just for moms who are expected to basically do it by themselves, but you're a dad, you don't want to miss out on the birth of your kid.
Right, and then when they inevitably come home sick, have no more sick days, so he's no longer at that job. But it was a reminder to me that, we still have a lot of work to do to have society be able to better enable these dynamics that we're trying to create in our own households. Because even if we are trying to create them, you don't always have the backing to do so, or the ability. It's like, it's a financial consideration too, about taking time off of work in your career. So we're getting there. It's going better than it's ever been, but we've still got some miles to go.
It's so funny you bring that up, the financial side, because that's the conversation we have with a lot of people who are planning to have a family, is really thinking about all different aspects of it. Like, what's childcare going to look like, feeding, time off, insurance, and really kind of planning all that out to figure out, okay, how is this going to work? Because, there's a lot of costs that come with it, a huge time commitment. And if you don't kind of just plan that out, it can get really complicated.
Yeah.
One of the things that surprised me when I became a parent was my wife and I are big planners, but we were still shocked by a couple things and completely changed things up.
Yeah.
What was unexpected as you transitioned to being a parent?
Childcare. Childcare is
Okay.
so expensive, and not only expensive, but you're paying this massive expense, and there's this dissonance about gosh, but I want to be also participating in that. And it's just hard. And then the trust aspect, you're bringing someone into your home, into your most, intimate lives as a family with your most precious, and it's hard. So that was something for me and for us, one silver bullet was grandma. And, we did benefit from being able to move back home. And I will say from a financial savings too. And I've benefited immensely from that village. And I have a lot of, empathy and sympathy for people who don't have access to family support like that, because it has made the world of difference for our family.
Psst, come here. Can we ask you a personal question?
A really personal one.
Are there big milestones you've been putting off just because you don't have the funds to make them happen? Like updating that patio, going on that dream vacation, planning for a family or something more? Too personal? We don't think so, because SoFi is ready to help you with a personal loan.
Whatever your personal journey is, SoFi is there to help you reach those milestones. SoFi personal loans have low fixed rates to make those big milestones easier to achieve.
Not to mention, SoFi was voted the top personal loan of 2023 by NerdWallet. View your rate today at SoFi.com. Now let's get into Brian and my favorite segment of the show called Tell Me How Much You Make. And I would actually really love to know, being not only an astronaut, but also a content creator, how do you consider thinking about your different income streams, and how do those break out in terms of like what money is coming into your bank account by percentages, like a pie chart?
Yeah, totally. So, the content creation and online side has been such a cool new frontier for me. I've always been very active on social media and shared my journey, for the past decade, but certainly has gotten a lot more attention now that I've reached a career milestone. And then the children's books, of course, have been another big passion project. And so I would say that the pie chart used to be like small sliver of side hustle and the rest was like typical income. That pie chart is like growing now a little bit, which is really cool. And again, it's a passion project for me. And I love connecting with people either through the books or through, partnerships that, do come with the opportunity to earn income off of them. But I have to admit, like, to me, I consider it monopoly money. Like, it's not real to me because I feel like at any moment that could all go away. And I think that's an irrational fear, but I look at it and it just feels so impermanent. I'm like, what if I get locked out of my Instagram account? Or what if like no one wants to read this book? Something about it feels so impermanent that I treat it like it's ephemeral, and it's like any opportunity I get, I'm like, well, this could be your last one, Kelly. So, you better make it count. And so I would say the breakdown of how I treat that side income is a majority of it goes to savings because I do have this belief that it could all
Music
go away
to our ears.
Tomorrow of that, and then I would say out of like, 70% that goes into savings, then the other 30%, I almost treat myself to running my own little Y Combinator for my like impulsive interests and passions, where I'm like, I would like to try my hand at space fashion, And so I suddenly have, let's say I have an extra $10,000 in a year to play with. In that way, there are a few things that I would not feel comfortable investing, our family's money in trying, because it would feel like an irresponsible financial decision for us. But because I have this little bit of cushion, I'm able to try things that I wouldn't ordinarily try.
Yeah, gives you opportunity to take risks.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like how you described it though, is probably if we could help any young professional make like a good decision, would be taking that approach, whether it be side income, raises, bonuses. Like, they focus so much on what their regular income they save, but what they do with those is going to determine their future, because it prevents lifestyle creep, puts money in the bank. Like, that is like one of the best decisions young people can ever make.
Yeah, yeah. And I do feel good about that. I feel like I'm someone who has financial anxiety. Like, it's just something I feel like almost I was born with, where I'm always up at night. Like, the biggest stressor in becoming pregnant was like, I don't know if I can afford college for this child. And, it's just these things that, and so I've always been more erring on the side of saving, just because I tend to catastrophize mentally. And I'm like, everything could all go away and I will need to rely on this savings account for the rest of my life, And so, and my husband sometimes is the, other voice of reason in our family, where it's like, we can't afford to go to, this wedding or this trip. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you're right. We can do that, And so it's a balance.
Kelly, thank you so much for being here and spending some time with Brian and myself. This was amazing, and I've learned so much from you.
Oh, this was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you.
Brian, I am feeling so inspired after our chat with Kelly, and I know you're not coming with me, but I have already started budgeting and saving for my seat on a commercial space flight.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that. And we talked about so many amazing things, but I think like the thing I took away was really having that forcing function like she had. And like, how do we find our own forcing function for those things that we know we should be doing in our financial lives, but are just like putting off? And I think that could be so powerful.
Definitely. Well, that's the end of our episode. Make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. You don't want to miss our next guest.
And go follow SoFi on social media for even more guidance.
See you next time.
Hi, it's me, Brian Walsh, aka Dr. Money, again to talk about some of the legal stuff. Though I am a certified financial planner professional, your finances are unique. That means anything I talked about today shouldn't be considered advice. Think of it more as high-level education or guidance.
And don't forget to subscribe.